back. It's TruthWire time, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining the show. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jaradula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And, of course, Jayme CheeseSlice is on the ones and twos. The Technique 1200s, the badass man that he is. We want to thank you all for joining us today. All the links down below to help independent media are here. If you haven't seen, Fam Fiorella has dropped a bomb-ass Substack, so go and check it out. Please share that out there, get it out there. It has a clip from our Wednesday show when we broke down the whole Zohran Mamdani situation, fam. Any quick thoughts or initial thoughts now that it's Friday? Do you have hope? Have you changed your way? I mean, Richard Wolff thinks this is a good thing.
You know, and Richard Wolff is a smart guy. I've had a great conversation, several great conversations with him. And the thing is, I get it from the standpoint of being in New York, but I also think that there's a certain blind spot that you have when you're just looking for that hope and ignoring all the obvious red flags. It's kind of like when you're dating, Pasta, and you should be very well versed in this. You see something you really like, and then you start ignoring all the red flags that are there that would, tell you, don't do this, don't go in this direction otherwise. Because you see this image of what you would want to see. And I think that's what a lot of people are seeing in him, that they're listening to his rhetoric. They're listening to what he looks like, the people he has behind him in terms of, how he was able to have such a successful campaign, which, hello, it's reminiscent of AOC. And they're forgetting about what times we're in and how I would say the intelligence apparatus in the United States works in capturing. And I titled that Substack something very specific, and I focused on the establishment manufacturing their own brand of radicals. And I said that the American political theater needs its fake revolutionaries as much as its fake enemies. And this is something that I really want to kind of cement going into today's discussion. Is it's no longer enough to understand the duality of the establishment versus the anti-establishment. You need to understand that the establishment at every turn will co-opt and use your own ideals against you to stop an actual uprising, whether that be what you would consider a revolution or whatever that would look like in the United States, because we haven't had one since our inception, to actually change things, right? And the thing is, people come to me yesterday because I after that post, people were still like angry, and were saying, but like electoralism has gotten us change. And I always make it a point to say, yes, but after there were non-electoral things happening, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, all of these things that people are talking about, especially the people on the left that like get so angry about this. All of that occurred because of outside organization. It didn't just happen because people went out to vote and that's how things changed. It happened because of things you didn't see happening on the ground in other ways, people organizing and doing things outside of that. And that was years ago. And now we're at a point where we're entirely susceptible to technology, right? Jayme was just talking about how AI is going to, take over. And Elon Musk is out there telling everybody that he wants AI to be in charge. We're entering an era that we haven't really dealt with before. So it's required to apply new mechanisms of understanding just how important social media has become, because Mamdani's social media presence has also been a reason why he got so popular. And people are forgetting that we always follow the money with him, and the money ties are there. There's the influential types that are around him, like the AOCIAs and such. And then there's also the reality of the situation in New York, where even if he wanted to do something, the chances of somebody wanting to do something, doing it in New York with the Zionist establishment contingent there are nearly impossible from an electoral standpoint. There has to be actual organization outside of that to force the government. And even then, I think we're at a point where it would be very difficult. We have drone technology, we have mass surveillance expanding all at the same time. Right now, I don't know if y'all heard, but thousands of flights are canceled because of the government shutdown and because of all this stuff that's happening where people are hurting. And just because one guy who happens to be Muslim, who has a wife that's pro-Syrian regime change, happens to have gotten elected, isn't going to change that. And I'm not trying to rid people of any hope. I'm trying to bring them back to reality, because I think having hopium is just as dangerous oftentimes when you're not facing reality. So yeah, that's where I want to start off.
I was going to say, yeah, their hopium is a strong drug. It's kind of weird because right now the lefties are dealing with hopium, right? They're on the hopium, hoping that Mamdani is something more than we think he's going to be. I mean, because we see the signs, and we're going to start off the show with something he said about Maduro and Diaz-Canel, which shows you right away that he just gets in line with the CIA talking points. It's a huge red flag. It's one of the reasons I said no way with this guy, even though he's not going to make decisions about national security. He's just the mayor of New York. It doesn't make a difference. The mindset is there, and it just tells you where he's at. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the drug that the Trumpers are dealing with. While the Mamdani people are on hopium, the Trump people are on copium, and they're trying to cope with this situation. And we're going to talk about the situation because, fam, I think also, too, as well, that some people are trying to say it's all about Israel. It is not. Every single decision. There are many decisions that Donald Trump has made. There are many avenues he went down that he wasn't supposed to go down. We'll kind of analyze that. I'm curious to see what you think is at the top of the chain other than Israel, because obviously the Israel situation is disgusting. But let's not forget, he's just picking up where Joe Biden left off, right? There are other decisions that Donald Trump has made, other policies that has gone down that are really, really bad, including on his second day, ushering in the technocrats like Larry Ellison and Sam Altman. So we'll go over that in the second part, and then we'll end up with talking a little bit about what's going on in Iraq, fam. But there are two stories that we didn't talk about today that hopefully we can circle the wagons and get back to on Monday: Nigeria and Mexico. This whole thing with the United States going into Mexico and the way they're trying to frame Claudia Sheinbaum, I think we should talk about that too as well, because we had said last week when we were talking about Colombia and Venezuela, and I showed the map from 1930 of the Club of Rome about how they want this whole area. And I had said Mexico is the tough one. Well, here we go. Now they're drawing up plans in the White House, and they're also talking about plans in Congress about going in drone strikes in Mexico without permission from the government, and they're trying to make Claudia Sheinbaum look inadequate and incapable of handling the cartels. So that's something we have to go through. I said on Matt's show, the number one thing we need to do is we need to have an investigation and transparency about the relationship with the CIA and the cartels and understand what that is before we do anything. And that's something we should demand first. But that's for another time, fam. Let's get into the whole Mamdani, guys. We want to thank you all for joining in. Gabrielle Freedom, I see you hanging on out. You're a rock star, sweetheart. Hugo Gutierrez, we love you guys all. Do us a favor, like, share, subscribe. Where is Ruth at? Where is Fred Edward? Where are these people? We love you out there. Fiorella Pasta and Jayme CheeseSlice. Let's get it rocking and rolling, fam. Take it away.
I think you're the one to start off this section, aren't you?
Well, okay, yeah. It's definitely, I'm going to let you drive the bus on this because you wrote an amazing Substack, and I think this is something we need to talk about. But let's put up the first thing I put in there. I put the old school Jayme, the clip in there, the old school pasta to go thing. I even put the guy there. Fam, this is the thing that makes me uber suspicious right here. And you can see the little pasta to go running around. Guys, if you haven't joined my channel over there, pasta to go. Fam doesn't have a YouTube because they won't let her have one. But that's kind of ridiculous. I want to be clear where I stand, and this is Zohran Mamdani. I believe both Nicolas Maduro and Miguel Diaz-Canel are dictators, he said, referring to the Venezuelan and Cuban leaders, respectively. And this is in quotes. Their administrations have stifled free and fair elections, jailed political oppositions, and suppressed free a free and fair press. But then he blamed the U.S. government blockade on Cuba and hostility towards Venezuela as counterproductive and inhumane. That was from Zohran Mamdani's quote in the New York Post. Fam, this is awful because not only is it a CIA talking point in which he's repeating, they suppress free and fair press and they mess with their elections. Well, show me the proof. Where are you getting this from? But it's also fence sitting too, which really, really bothers me. I'd rather you be one way or the other. You should say, no, we shouldn't be messing around. He's a legitimate leader, or no, he's illegitimate. But then the fence sitting from these fucking Democrats. Debbie Wasserman Schultz did it with Donald Trump the other day. Like, oh, you need to sanction Venezuela hard, but blowing up these boats are bad. So you want to starve out their population, but you don't want them to extrajudicial killings. You want that to go away. I can't stand the fence sitting. And Zohran Mamdani does that perfectly like a good Democrat, fam.
Yeah, and there's nothing more than I hate more than the people who speak out of both sides of their mouth, because that is actually a good politician in the terms of being a sleazy politician, in the terms of being what's become of the politicians in the United States, because this is how he gets people, right? It's like he has to do the whole condemning Maduro, condemning this and that. I mean, AOC did it, Obama's done it. They all did it. The progressive brand types, they all speak out of both sides of their mouth. Bernie Sanders, even Tulsi Gabbard, if we go back, she did it as well. And this is how they get credibility. And then people say, well, at least they're not as bad as, say Andrew Cuomo. At least he's not as bad. At least he's not outright about this. But the problem with not being outright is that he's so wishy-washy that you're not going to know where he's going to go to next. And the other problem with him is, yes, he's now mayor of New York, which means that he can also become more. We've seen Gavin Newsom rise up through the ranks, and we've seen what he's been doing and the potential he has now to run for, say, U.S. president after being the governor.
Can he run for president?
Well, he can later on if he chooses to. He doesn't necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to do it now. Huh?
He was born in the United States?
Gavin Newsom?
Oh, I thought we were talking about Zohran.
No. I mean, I'm making a
Gavin
tie
Newsom's
to
definitely running for president.
I'm like, yeah, but I'm making like a comparison in terms of how Zohran could run for something greater. He could run for Congress, and I wouldn't be surprised, for example, that he could run for that. So my point is, as Pasta said earlier, just because his position is only that of a mayor of New York, which, by the way, New York is an extremely powerful state to be a mayor of. That's like being the mayor of California. You have more economic power in that state than in nearly any other state besides California, right? So it's not the same thing as being the mayor of, I don't know, like New Hampshire or something, or Little Rock, or some place like that. It's completely different. So I think that people are missing the point when they're like, yeah, but that's not on him. It's like, no, that's where his ideology comes from. That's what's going to tell you how he's going to be. And politicians like that are formed through and through and are approved by the co-opted neo-progressive, is what I'm calling them, the neo-progressive establishment, the new establishment. They're not just going to run one time and give up. They're there for life. They're there to rise up through the ranks. And this is what you have to look forward to. This is what's going to convince the next generation of hopefuls or idiots that they need to follow the same way that people were convinced that they needed to follow Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, who opened the doors for women. You see, it's always going to be twisted into one way or another, especially for the left, or the quote unquote left, through the issue of, oh, look, he hired a bunch of women for his positions. What kind of women? Where are they coming from? Who are they working for?
Fam, you're frozen. Maybe you want to jump out, jump back in. I don't know, but you are definitely frozen, and it's not purty. Guys, thank you so much for joining the TruthWire. We were talking about Zohran Mamdani and his ties to the elites and parrots imperialist foreign policy. If you want to throw it back up there really quickly too, Jayme, you can throw it back up. I don't know if you have it ready, but you don't necessarily need to. Zohran Mamdani condemned and gave us CIA talking points about Nicolas Maduro and Diaz-Canal. How do you say you're going to be a socialist, but other socialist countries, you're going to just condemn their leaders for being a socialist? Because let's get this correct, straight. Everybody knows this. Nicolas Maduro and Diaz-Canal are being persecuted because they are socialist, right? Socialism is going to lead to state-owned nationalization of resources, and that means the corporations can't get them, and that's why they're hated by the establishment more than anything. And here's Zohran Mamdani repeating that. So let's move on to the next part. The fence sitting, we talked about really bad. Fam, Intifada, right? Intifada. You there? Are you frozen again?
That he had told his supporters, Zohran Mamdani, back in the summer that he wasn't going to like censor them, you know, because he came into this, he got popular by being pro-Palestinian. But then he told this influential group of business leaders, which, by the way, for people who say he's not taking corporate money, he's trying to get corporate influence, that he wouldn't use the phrase globalize the Intifada, which they say is violence towards Jews. And then the very first thing he did recently is go on and talk about how anti-Semitism is the number one problem. So this is just more of the things the red flags, let's say, as opposed to the green flags that everybody's seeing. The other thing I want to mention is, of course, the AOCIA picture that he took and the breaking bread that they had together. We know who AOC is. Pasta and I, more than a lot of people actually know who AOC is, because we at one point supported her. And God, Pasta even had pizza with her. And so for me, this indicates that this is just, he's going right along that same track, right? He's absolutely doing that. The photo ops with all the right people. These are the new brand of progressives. And the next thing, if you want to pull that one up, Jayme, I mean, it's just par for the course. It's not surprising, but I think a lot of people, like I said Wednesday, a lot more people are waking up to this than before. So I guess that's good. Then when AOC ran, I'm seeing a lot more people, notice this. And
I think
so
the red flags, fam, will come up a lot quicker this time, and people will jump and go, hell no, because they've been through it before, right? Like the Trump people didn't do the stuff that we knew as Obama people, where we didn't go hell no in the beginning, like right into Obama's cabinet, like right into his first presidency. Citibank picked his economic cabinet, and instead of us going, wait a second, no way, that's not good, we kind of went along. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that, fam, this time around, since we've already been through it. Same thing with the Trumpers and the populist right. More red flags. They'll be quicker to talk out of the gate. Where are you, fam? Sorry about that. You okay? Can you hear? Fam? You're there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I'm here. I'm back. Well, I want to say that I asked people, like, has your life changed at all since AOC became a congresswoman? And some people got mad for it's like, well, has it? Like, has New York gotten better? Pasta? I haven't been to New York. I was there not too long ago.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like things were better than they were before. It doesn't seem like I'm sure the Bronx wasn't better. I mean, the what I've seen is the opposite. Things are getting worse because things are getting worse generally. Things are getting worse in general for the average American person, not for AOC though. Things have gotten really well for her. So,
Well, she's and let's not forget, like, we see her votes, how she gets in line. You have to see the situations for what they are. The whole changing their vote on the Iron Dome after Mama Bear gave her talking, that just tells you a lot. You know what I'm saying? It just tells you a lot. And with Zohran, you know what I'm saying, that whole comment we showed in the beginning. I mean, how are you going to call yourself a socialist and then kind of dog on two of the biggest socialist countries in Latin America? It makes no sense to me.
Because it makes sense if you're a Western faux socialist, because this is how they are. This is how the DSA is. This is the same line of thought the progressives have. This is the same line of thought even some of the PSL have. Not as bad, but in terms of foreign policy, they're better on foreign policy. But they still go with the human rights and women's rights and all this other bullshit that other people in other countries don't have the luxury to talk about that in a way that you think is acceptable because they're busy being bombed and sanctioned. And I get so mad at these people because they are coming from a place of privilege. They love talking about white privilege, yet they don't realize a lot of these people are the ones with privilege. They get to talk about their socialist ideals from a Western lens without caring how people live day to day with sanctions and with bombs and with just complete and total destruction. And that's their life every day. They don't just go there to report on it. They don't go there for a photo op. They literally live there in and day out. And that's why I hate people like the Squad, the Mamdanis, because they represent that class that thinks that they are for equality and all this bullshit. But really, at the end of the day, they're there to perpetuate the same status quo.
Yeah. All right. Moving along.
So the other day, I wanted to just point this out. He's with Alex Soros, right? But Alex Soros had posted, if you can show the first picture, Alex Soros had posted this tweet not so long ago where he said he shared an article from Haaretz that said Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza. And it was an opinion piece. And these people forget that he's, that this is the guy who he's tying himself with. And he's not only tying himself to Alex Soros, he's tying himself to Open Society, which is the Soros Foundation. And he has been going to events through and through. And I want to highlight this part coming up, Pasta, the money ties, right? Because we always pay attention to the money ties. But before we go there, let's look at like his pivot to the Zionists, his pointing to the Zionists, which is the next tweet. Jayme, he's basically doing this sort of virtue signaling to the Zionists. So this guy posted, my community's yeshiva, Jewish day school in Brooklyn, where I taught years. So there was supposedly an anti-Semitic attack, a swastika placed here. Now, I don't know about you,
Jesus,
but I know that for a fact that a lot of the times when we have seen this before, it's been a false flag, but done by an Israeli to lay blame on Palestinians, on people who are Muslim, whoever, and paint them as anti-Semitic. Okay, I can't prove that, but a lot of the times we have discovered later on that that's the case. Now, so he goes and sees this without anything and says this is a disgusting and heartbreaking act of anti-Semitism. Sure, it would be if it was real. We don't know. And it has no place in our beautiful city. As mayor, then he goes further. As mayor, I will always I will always stand steadfast with our Jewish neighbors to root out the scourge of anti-Semitism out of our city. So it's just, this is one of the first things he says. And to me, it's just signaling like, okay, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna, shut this down. And when you point it out, people are like, why are you mad that he's going after anti-Semitism? And I'm like, because it's virtue signaling. You don't need to do that. He doesn't need to say anything. In fact, he could just say, okay, that's horrible. Let's investigate further to see where this is coming from. We don't want acts like this to divide us. That's what I would say. But
yeah, fam, can I just piggyback on that really quickly too? And you're frozen again. But the thing about it is that it is kind of virtue signaling because it's taking a situation where that's not the attitude and the sentiment from those coming in New York, right? There are a lot of people who are upset. the bigger issue, I should say, is that people are conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, right? In other words, most people out there, a lot of people who are against what Israel are doing are anti-Zionist. They're not anti-Semitic. And kind of elevating this whole swastika is like saying that that's the bigger issue now than the fact that Israel is committing a genocide, and saying that if you speak out against it, you're being anti-Semitic when you're really just being anti-Zionist. That is a much bigger issue right now. We understand that. That's what's going on. I haven't lived in New York in a while. I've been there not too long ago, but they're not Nazis walking around the street being anti-Jewish. And if they were, if people would saw that, they would curse them and throw them out. So to kind of elevate this little small thing over here as if it's something big, it is virtue signaling, right? And you're avoiding the issue, and you're saying the issue is anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is not the issue in New York right now. It's the way anti-Zionism is being labeled as anti-Semitic. That is a much bigger issue right now. That is a much bigger issue. Students are getting deported in his area. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I really like to see a lot of other people's opinions on this and stuff, but to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is a much bigger issue than a swastika and going, I'm going to stop anti-Semitism as if that's a problem right now. It's not. And what he's doing, he knows what he's doing. He's showing you his true colors.
Yeah, it's definitely not the number one problem that he's making it out to be. And it amplifies the Zionist propaganda that it is, right?
Yes.
It's the number one problem we have to tackle.
Yes.
So here we go, guys. There's some money ties in open society. So let's just go right into this. So Zohran named the president and CEO of United Way, Grace Bonilla. Now, Grace Bonilla is funded by multinational corporations and billionaires, and he named her into his transition team. But look how it's being portrayed. It's going to be portrayed like she's a socialist, but she's not. She's backed by billionaires and funders. So this is Grace Bonilla. She's the United Way president and chief executive officer. And the tweet. Can you put up the tweet, Jayme, as well? Because I want to show you how it's being portrayed. Yeah, there it is.
Socialist woman, fam.
Where are you getting that this is a socialist woman? Like, where is this coming from? I want to know. Like, what? Why? I mean, it's just
Ryan. What's his called? What was the dude that used to? Oh, Johnny MAGA.
Maybe it's a MAGA guy that's saying it's socialist.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. So I just want to say something. At least MAGA and the liberals agree, right? He's a socialist. It's kind of funny. They agree that he's a socialist when he's actually not. The other thing I want to point out is that Zohran just spent some time in Puerto Rico for the Soros Open Society Foundation. And this is Somos 25 is a Soros foundation. So it has ties to open society. And I just want to pull that up too. If you go to he flew in already, right? He went to this event in Puerto Rico. It's called Somos 25. Now, if you pull up the next one, Jayme, from Spectrum News 1 or New York 1, they talk about this, the top New York political figures gathering in Puerto Rico for the Somos conference. Mamdani was going to be there with Kathy Hochul, by the way, who got booed. And so they made their way to Puerto Rico. And so they gather there each year to discuss issues important to Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican communities. So let's be real about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is basically a U.S. colony that's been exploited by real estate development and has pretty much kicked the majority of Puerto Ricans into poverty. And it's basically that's how Puerto Rico exists, right? So this is the kind of thing that he's going to see. It's being pushed as like, oh, we're looking at universal child care, where he's going to be promoting his free bus program. and a tax. I mean, these are very minimal incremental things that he's promoting for New York. So he's going to go there and talk. And he talked about Trump. He denounced Trump. He went on his whole thing. And so what I want to point out is, if you go to the opensocietyfoundation.org and you pull that up, you're going to see, if you scroll down, that Somos is part of the awards grants to open from Soros's foundation. So if you go down a little bit, you'll see it. You just got to scroll down. And there it is. Somos CDC. This is, there's that. There's thousands of dollars being poured into that. And this has been an ongoing thing. And George Soros being tied to Mamdani, like I said, it's not the only thing, but it is one of the things that people need to be paying attention to, where this money is going, because he's saying he doesn't like billionaires, right? And I can agree with that. Okay, don't like billionaires. But he's directly tied to the Soros Foundation. So all the billionaires are excluded except the billionaires that are backing him, which again points to more hypocrisy and more doublespeak that to me is just dangerous, because what are you going to trust? How are you going to trust what he says? And
okay,
yeah.
What do you say to people who say, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important because I want to hear your point on this. What do you say to people? Okay, but these are elections and you can't be critical of who's giving you money. As long as Zohran Mamdani gets to do what he wants to do, and he's not told by those billionaires, isn't that okay?
Why would they give him money if he's not going to do what they want him to do?
Maybe they'll get some things from Zohran, but other things they're not going to get.
So he still, ultimately, there will come a moment where they're going to want something that's not going to be good for the people. I mean, we're talking about the interests, right? So if we're talking about this logically, we have two people. A billionaire person, we have three. A billionaire person, a middle-class person, and then a person that's, poor. And ultimately, the whole point is convincing the person in the middle that it's this guy, the poor guy, that's really the problem. And so if you make a deal with that guy, eventually they're going to do something that might not even serve you well. It might even affect you or other people around you negatively, but it won't be as bad as if you were on the lesser end. So yeah, ultimately there might be some, I guess, cosmetic benefits to it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is it going to advance the people that he's advocating he's for? No, because those people never get any advancement. I mean, let's be real. Like, there's a difference between, when we talked about this the other day, I think the managerial class in New York, the people that are educated and have careers and stuff. And I'm not, begroaning anybody for being educated and having a career at all whatsoever. But I am saying that there's a difference. Oftentimes people lose sight after they've gone this way, and they lose sight of like the struggles of everyday people. And then they start becoming alienated. And then you have, a very intellectual class. And this really mostly applies to the liberals, because on the right, it's a little bit different. And they think that they're for this stuff, but at the end of the day, would they actually give up their home to house somebody? Would they actually do all of the things they're saying they do? Would they actually go to Gaza like our friend Sam Husseini was asking Mamdani to go to Gaza? He's like, how many politicians have gone to Israel, but none have gone to Gaza? I mean, that's a good point. Like, how many of them? It's normal to go to Israel, but why don't you go to Gaza? Why don't you go to Gaza? Like that. This is what I'm talking about. Unless there's not a photo op or something to exploit, they're not going to do it. So at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're exploiting the poorest, just the same way the liberals exploit the Latino community and the Black community to do absolutely nothing for them. It's just the same shit.
And by the way, thank you, Hugo, for pointing out I was playing devil's advocate. I'm not. I understand the fact that if the billionaire is going to give you money, he's getting something in return. They always get something in return. That's why they're called billionaires.
And let's be honest. I mean, most people, in the world, like they have a price. I mean, if somebody comes and offers you like $1 million, if you just do this one thing, most people would do that one thing. If it doesn't seem like too much of a deal. This is how they get people. They're like, if you just do this one thing, you can have this and I won't bother you again. And this is how it works.
And with the billionaires, it's usually they give you the money if you don't do this one thing. Like, all right, I'm going to give you $1 million. Just don't do this one thing, right? Don't have a rent freeze. Don't give money for housing, whatever it is. It's usually that's where the money comes. So they're saying, I'll give you the money, just don't do this. And it's usually a big thing that the base wants that they can't do. Usually. I'll give you $1 billion. Don't piss on Israel. Go.
I don't think I could take that offer, unfortunately.
If it's $1 billion, I'll take it. Nothing less, though.
I don't think I can do it.
At this point, I'll take it and lie. But then whack you. You'll be gone.
He'll be like this. You'll develop like a twitch in your eye. So the last thing on this that I want to mention is
you're not feeling suicidal, by the way. Just want to point that out. Go ahead, fam.
The 501c4 that he created. So there's two ways this is being, and I want to hear your opinions on this. This is being promoted in several ways. So some people are saying this is actually a good thing. So he created this 501c4. If you can pull that one up, Jayme, which is basically called Our Time. Costa, you know how many times we've been through this, right? Remember our revolution? Yeah. Remember the guys in California creating their own thing? Yep. And it's supposed to be for the purpose of mobilizing supporters to pass his agenda. So now a lot of people in the comments were angry. Some people were like, what's wrong with this? This is normal. This is what you do. This is how you fundraise money to do what you want to do. The problem with a 501c4 is you don't get to see where this money is coming from or where this money is going. It's a non-transparent thing, right? So that's the problem. So he could have somebody donate to him and you wouldn't know where, like, what kind of money this is. It's hidden. Yeah. And so how can you as a socialist advocate to do this? I mean, I'd have no problem if a Republican or a liberal was doing it because they don't advocate to be a socialist. Like, I know where they stand. I know, what they're not promising people like the stars and the moon, but this guy is. And that's, again, this is why they piss me off more because I don't know even know the word is. They're utilizing like poverty to like get points. And I feel like that's so horrible because it's like these people don't have much to go on. So yeah, I think that's very shady of him, and I think we're gonna need to watch that now. So one other thing, it's going to be 100% hidden. So if, for example, I ask, can you please show me the money that's the transactions that are there? He doesn't have to do that because of the 501c4. So no more can any of you claim that he's not using dark money because that is the definition of dark money.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's all on that. I think the last tweet there is just a tweet about how a lot of these people have rebranded themselves. You saw it, I think, yesterday, Pasta. It's like you see Mehdi Hassan, you see the other guys. So she said, watching Mehdi Hassan rebrand himself, Ashley Stevens, the past year, and being welcomed in certain circles sure has been interesting. So there's Mehdi Hassan, Hassan Piker, Mahmoud Khalil, and a bunch of politicians just like, look, they're all progressive.
Is that Jamal Bauman?
Yes, Jamal Bauman.
Somebody better put a lock over the fire alarm.
He voted 5 times. Jamal
Mehdi Hassan is a pro-regime change,
He's the small guy.
media stooge.
How do you feel tonight? How do you feel about New York?
I don't know
Who is that?
how anyone feels today. Like
I think
this,
it's that
this
that one's
campaign proves
moved
what
to Leo.
politics actually is.
You know, Leo. I mean, this whole thing, you know, Pasta. We've been in these rooms with some of these people, like not them in particular, but similar, basically.
Yeah.
This is how they are. They go and they ingratiate themselves to the progressives, and you know, it becomes this whole cool kids club. And at the end of the day, it's just it's the Democratic Party. It really, that's all it is. It's gross. We've been there before. We've seen it. It feels like deja vu, and I really don't want to continue talking about this. It's probably the most I've talked about U.S. electoral politics in years, but it had to be addressed. We had to show the receipts. Watch that 501c4, because that's dark money, and that's what AOC did. That's what all Our Revolution idiots did.
Just Democrats.
Yeah.
They were called the Justice Democrats, and FAM said, no, they're just Democrats.
The Working Families Party, too.
Yeah. I mean, and you can see all these people coming right in on that, you know, and it's, listen, I've had my issues. I'm going to speak for myself, fam. I'll let you chime in if you want, because I think you've had more issues than me. But I've had my issues with Katie Halper and Brianna Joy Gray and Rania Kalick and Abby Martin and stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know, at the same time, I don't want to downplay some of their work on Israel. It's been consistent. It's been good. You know, I follow Katie Halper's show Wednesdays on WBAI. And so I'm often listening to the last 20 minutes of her show all the time. She's had some great guests on, made some great points and stuff. But when it comes to this, and I'm talking about not those donkeys like Mehdi Hassan and whatnot and Hassan Piker, and I'm talking about the women I just mentioned, right, who have done good work on that. This is a beyond blind spot, weak spot for them. I mean, they are awful when it comes to this shit. You know, they were awful when it came to COVID. They were awful when it came to recognizing the squad. I mean, Katie is still kind of promoting Pramila Jayapal, you know, and her Medicare for All bill, you know. And it's like, if you look at their Medicare for All bill, it's a handout. Hers and Bernie's, it's a handout to Big Pharma. And the fact that they still think that those are good Democrats, you know, and all their stances on elections are terrible. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand how they do it. It's like they took the whole 2020 situation and said, instead of saying, let's fight for more transparency for the people, they went along and said, what we got is good, just because of the results. You know, and that's really blindsided, weak-sided. So it's a very, very big blind spot for these people. And they shouldn't, the crystal balls. Well, the crystal, you know, obviously, I would expect more out of Brianna Joy Gray and Abby Martin and all these other people. Like, I would expect them to catch this, you know, because a lot of the operations they're running, these people right now in the States, I'm talking about the elites and the ruling class, they started running overseas. You know what I'm saying? Everything that they bring home to us to use on us has been done in Latin America, has been done in the Middle East. You know, they should be able to catch these things, but they don't. And it's a very weak spot for a lot of people on the left to understand that there's a government within a government and they're running psychological operations, you know, and that's why, you know, you see Richard Wolff and stuff not kind of catching on and being happy about Mamdani, where we as if right away, and here's the thing, fam, when we say this, I know it to be true. I really do hope that we are wrong about Mamdani. I swear to God that I hope I'm wrong about Zohran Mamdani. But I don't think I am, because I've seen this movie before several times. That's all.
So yeah, I gotta agree with Oz here, Pasta. It's not about catching it. It's not about it being a blind spot for some of these people. For some of these people, it's like they're part of that
Katie
group.
Abby,
they're all part. They're all
know.
part of that group. Pasta.
Yeah.
You had your moment. Let me have mine. They are part of that group of the managerial class, you can call it whatever you want. The people who live in New York, who are well off and have enough money and don't really need have any sort of dealing with the real world. And besides Abby Martin, who, as much as she's blocked me for COVID, she did good work on Gaza Fights for Freedom. And I'll say that till I'm blue. I mean, that was a good documentary. When I went to see it when we were cool, and it was good. And I'll say that was good. She at least went there. She did something. Everybody else though and doesn't travel to the places that we're talking about. They haven't been to the Middle East. They haven't really done, and it's one thing to go on a tourist trip too. I tell people you need to go beyond the delegations. You need to go sometimes like on your own and sometimes do your own thing, because in that way you really see things more clearly. And I think that does something to you, especially. And I think a lot of these people, I think I would have been more like you had I not been outside of the US and seen just how it's not even a blind spot. It's like a purposely kept comfort level that it's not convenient for you to see, because if you did see it, then you would feel like terrible. And then you would understand that you're a contributing factor to what is happening all across the world in these regions, whether it's West Asia / Middle East or, Latin America or any of these countries in Africa right now that we are affecting, that the things that we have caused throughout the world. And so it's very hard for people to leave their comfort zone where they're good at the things that they're just used to actually go and put themselves out there. And when they do that, then yes, there will be growth. But until they do that, there won't be. And it's more than a blind spot. It is just an understanding, like, I'm not going to touch that. Just like Matt Taibbi said, I'm not going to touch Israel, Gaza. There's a lot of people talking about that. I don't need to comment on that. That's a cop out. Everybody knows that that's a cop out. Like it's because you don't want to lose that audience. Right? They don't want to lose that audience. There are people here that have limits as to what they will talk about because they don't want to lose a sector of the audience. And that goes for everybody. The majority of your favorites, they all have things they don't touch. A lot of those things have to do with the elections that Pasta mentioned and COVID, especially on the left. Right? And we are literally, like, right now more than ever, we are seeing the results of all of that, of the election debacle and of COVID and what COVID vaccines did to a lot of people. Yeah. And again, it's not going to take another 5 years for us to be right about that. We know we were right about that, but people are still regurgitating a lot of the same BS. And believe me, they're going to continue regurgitating some of this because it's safe. And until somebody else of a status dictates, hey, you can talk about this now, they don't talk about it. And so that's it's not necessarily a blind spot for some of these people. I don't want to say all, but for some, it's more of like, it's just not convenient to do that.
And I would say that some of those ladies that I mentioned, Abby Martin, Katie, Halpa, and Rania Kalik have been a much bigger asshole to Fiorella than me. You know what I'm saying? I would just say that.
I have no idea why. I'm the nicest person ever.
No, I'll tell you why, fam. And I left Brianna Joy Gray.
I actually am nice
out of that because I've never seen Brianna Joy Gray or Crystal kind of like, but the attitude and Mike Preisner, I'm sorry. That was the nickname we called him. We were calling him Mike Pfizer and Jabby Martin, right? That was the nicknames for them and stuff. They were, to this day, they're still bad on COVID and stuff like that. Mike came at me pretty hard. We were going back and forth on Twitter. Abby's brother, Robbie, hated me, you know what I'm saying? Because we were going back and forth and I was trying to be as kind as I can. But, the information's out right now and they still haven't come around. And this is part of, once again, the psychological operations that are run by the state. You had people like Alex Jones talking about mass vaccines for a while. And that's why a lot of people immediately go, oh, if that asshole's saying that, then no way it could be true. And then it comes around and a lot of what he said was true. But that's the thing. You got to be able to decipher. There's always a lot of truth in psychological operations. They have to get you aboard. So they have to tell you some truths to draw you in. It's where they're taking you, right? And that's what I want to examine in this next section. Are we done with the first section then?
Yes.
Okay. So they lure you in, and I've said this too. For instance, Steve Bannon, when it came to elections, had a lot of great people on, people that we knew. Garland Favorito, who was a Tulsi supporter, John Brakey, who was a leftist, a hardcore leftist. People in that field he would bring in and get you, hooked. But then he would turn around and say it's all China's fault. So they gain your trust on certain sides, and then they steer you in a different direction. And that's where we have to understand where the psychological operations are going, right? So a lot of people are saying that Donald Trump has lost all his base. He's got his worst ratings ever because of Israel. Israel is a big reason why a lot of people are pissed off at him. But fam, did we not know before going into this election that Donald Trump was a hardcore Zionist? Didn't he make that perfectly clear?
It was pretty abundantly clear, yeah.
Okay. So put this up there. So this is coming off a comment that Dave Smith put out there that it's all about Israel, and that's why people are walking away. Jayme, I'm going to start moving this thing to make it big. Israel, and Connor Freeman, friend of the show, antiwar.com, Libertarian Institute, right? He's one of the guys out there. Israel, he questions, that's why everybody's walking away from you. And he points out, let's talk about the other things. And fam, my question to you is, if you're listening off camera, which one of these things, other than Israel, to you is one of the biggest red flags out there? Workers and small business owners are being immiserated. The affordability crisis is getting worse. We see him taking billions more from the military-industrial complex, the peace president, to build a gaudy ballroom after he gave them $1 trillion budget, cutting America's food aid off amidst the shutdown, and having a huge Halloween party. The big, beautiful bill, bailing out Malay, killing fishermen on camera every week, impending war with Venezuela. Gestapo tactics at home. We're talking about ICE running around there. Billions more from Palantir. The brutalization of immigrants, turning American cities into the West Bank. Epstein, where are those files? Ukraine, and in 24 hours. You can't just blame the Israel issue. I know that's the official narrative Tucker is comfortable with, because he and his son, if you can move it up a little bit, Jayme, he and his son need to sell Vance in 28, but cut the shit. The American people wanted a wall, not Nazism with our own shores. And I would say that, and I kind of corrected this. I said, well, the conservatives want a wall. On the left, we didn't give a fucking shit about a wall. We thought you were overplaying the issue. All of the rich assholes that endorse him knew Zionism and genocide and bombing in Iran was what he was going to do, when he was going in on. We knew that. That's not what Rogan's issue is. What he said was he doesn't like what ICE is doing, and far few people than you think are okay with all of that. Fam, I just want to know, aside from Israel, what you think maybe one of the biggest issues or the biggest downfall of the Trump administration is. He laid out a lot of things here. If you forgot one, please fill this in, and please tell us which one you think, and I'll tell you which I think the biggest oh my God is when you get a chance. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's the surveillance issue. The betrayal, obviously the Epstein thing was huge, right? But what does the Epstein thing mean? It means the protection of the elite. And with that protection of the elite is a protection of Trump and his circle of people. These people aren't going to be held accountable whatsoever. You're not going to get all the retracted or redacted information on the JFK files. You're not going to get the truth out of the Trump administration. He's not the guy that's not going to censor people. They've been advocating for censorship. And on top of that, you're going to get the surveillance state. I think that whole thing is all tied together, the surveillance state. When people voted for Trump, even though there were already red flags, like Pasta said, they thought that he was going to be at least better on free speech, on the First Amendment and on the Fourth Amendment, and the ability to have privacy. They thought that maybe he would actually do the right thing. But now he's used the border issue, the issue that they really wanted focused on the most, the right, at least, that when it came to control of immigration. Well, now he's literally taken that issue and expanded it towards everybody, because guess what, guys, when digital ID comes in, which is already being implemented in many ways, when the surveillance tech is there, the drone warfare, do you think that those things aren't being used on people, on regular everyday citizens? Of course they are, because there's not going to be any differentiation in the data, because all the data is going to go there. And it's already happened. Of course, we know Palestine and Gaza in particular, where the guinea pigs for that type of society that's going to be implemented elsewhere. And so when we talk about these things, we need to remember that they're all connected. It's not just one thing, but in terms of not just the domestic aspect of it, but how the foreign intelligence and our warmongering machine and our surveillance tech that was used on our enemies, and that's being used by Israel on the people of Palestine, is already inside our walls in the United States. And I think that it's not only huge for a lot of people, I think that extremity has shaken up a lot of people, where they're like, wait a minute, like, we're not supposed to be the ones you're targeting. You're supposed to target the illegals and the immigrants. Well, obviously, that's not the only people that are going to be targeted eventually.
Never. It only starts with the immigrants, fam, or the foreigners, and never ends with the immigrants. And yeah, obviously we're in agreement. I knew you were going to do that because Palantir, and the Fourth Industrial Revolution getting ushered in, the track and trace systems. This is something that, when we talk about these issues, and I talked about it on Matt's show on yesterday, that you have a Democrat come in to complete the issues or the things or the bills or the policies that the Republicans can't do, and vice versa. Donald Trump, day two, had Larry Ellison and Sam Altman out there talking about contracts. And Larry Ellison's a guy who wants to build AI mRNA vaccines. Like, in other words, to go in your system, see your DNA, and then duplicate that. I mean, he is so down the line of, the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's crazy. And here's Donald Trump ushering him in, and the whole biometric system that he's building. So I'm there with you, and that's something that, the Republicans were supposed to be against. Now, I would tell you this much, that out of all those issues out there, the things that really pissed off a lot of the populist right was the Epstein files, because he refused to show them there. And I think that does tie into a lot to Israel. A lot of people missed it. They didn't kind of put it together. But I said to myself, first of all, there really is no Epstein files. Everything out there publicly is, that's been out there is already out there, that they're going to show. They're not going to show anything else. We wanted to see everything, all his clients, all the people that were on the island, who he sold little girls to. But he would never release that. And nobody put it together that he was going to be protecting Israel, right? It already leaked out that Ehud Barak, who was a prime minister of Israel, was going to see women that Jeffrey Epstein set him up with, right? That slipped through the cracks. They weren't going to let more slip through the cracks. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great list by Connor Freeman. I think that's awesome that he put it out there. So many things. It's not just Israel alone. It's the presidency as a whole, because what he's doing is he's advancing the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Great Reset. That's why Donald Trump was brought in, the time of acceleration, and he's doing just that, fam. So, next part. What was the next tweet? Okay,
Tucker?
so let's look at what the populist right, where they're driving the bus and what they're talking about, whatnot. So here is the Tucker Carlson trying to sell you that it's about Israel. And they were talking about Zohran Mamdani. I think this is the interview with Nick Fuentes, but this is what they're talking about. Go ahead. This is Tucker Carlson.
That guy was the only person in the New York City mayor's debate to say he wanted to focus on New York City. All the candidates were asked, if you could visit a foreign country, what would it be? And they, of course, all had an answer. I think most said Israel. Great. And he said, I wouldn't go anywhere. I'd stay in New York. And like, if I want to meet Jewish constituents, I'd go to their synagogues, their homes, or whatever, but I'd be here in New York. That guy was the only person in the New York City mayor's debate to say he wanted to focus on New York City. So all the candidates were asked, if you could visit a foreign country, what would it be? And they, of course, all had an answer. I think most said Israel. Great. And he said, I wouldn't go anywhere. I'd stay in New York.
Okay.
And like, if I want to meet Jewish constituents, I'd go to their synagogues, their homes or whatever, but I'd be here in New York.
Maybe that's good. Okay. So that was the interview with Nick Fuentes. But yeah, fam, once again, they're trying to frame this as Israel only. Do you have a reason why you think, is it to distract from the other negativities? Is that it? Or is there something more to it that, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm still trying to figure out, okay, why are they allowing these people to say this? Why did these people turn? Why are they doing this now? And here's the thing. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, who they say are all coming together now. That's what the right-wingers are saying that are there. They are all hardcore anti-communist. They are all hardcore pro-status quo, leave the capitalism going on. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of them, all three of them, I think, are anti-immigrant. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think this just goes along with everything we've talked about. You know, on the left, like it replicates on the right. You have the people that are kind of, you know, you can say controlled opposition, but you can say they're allowed to criticize. They're allowed to say these things that other people aren't allowed to say. And the push toward blaming it all on Israel, which, by the way, it's not just Israel in terms of even the Zionism, because like I said, and I've been saying on the show, Zionism is everywhere. It's spread beyond the United States, beyond Israel. It's in a lot of places. And there are Zionist influences everywhere that you can think of. And so when you talk about just it being Israel, it allows the idea that the United States is a victim. And I've already touched on this too with Donald Trump, that Trump is a victim of the of Netanyahu. That Trump is just the one that's unfortunately has to do what he has to do, and that Americans have to free themselves from this, you know, this capture by Israel. But it's as simple. I don't buy that it's just the US being captured by Israel. Because that alleviates us from any culpability, from the fact that we want to supply Israel weapons, that we need Israel in the region, that we need to continue doing this for that purpose. So I think that's why you're seeing this narrative come out. The other thing is there's an underlying truth to what happened is a lot of these people, like the Lucas Cages of the world, they were actually like anti-Semites, and they actually did not like anybody that had anything to do with, you know, with Jewish, whatever ethnicity. And so they kind of LARPed into the Palestinian movement, which is, I mean, I'm not gonna like gatekeep or anything like that, but I think people need to remember where these people are coming from. This is why I always say why people support something and why they do it ultimately does matter to me. And I don't believe the ends justify the means, because you can be on the same side as a person on one thing, but when it comes to another thing, overall, at the end of the day, and this is my issue with the populist right, everything you just mentioned is true. They're not anti-empire. They're pro-US empire, but they don't want the interventions that affect the domestic issues and the domestic focus of the United States. So they consider that to be America first. So they're like, okay, we're going to focus on bettering us and our people, and that's it. Everybody else can go to hell. We don't care about the rest of the world. Whereas like the liberals are like, we're going to spread our democracy, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if there's a war that can be manipulated or construed to say, oh, this war is going to better the lives of the American people. And for example, we need oil from Venezuela. We need to stop the narco terrorists. They're communists. They're going to come in and ruin us. We have to defend ourselves to keep America great. That's how you capture the populace, right? And that's how you can capture a lot of the people, because the ideology, the belief in anti-empire isn't there. And that's essentially what we're seeing here, which is why they have like this weird tie with Russia, where Russia, you know, and a lot of the right is like saying we have Christian values that unite us. Well, a small sector of the Russian population has Christian values. I can tell you that a large portion is non-religious, especially young people. So it's, you know, a lot of this is just kind of like the ideologies are not all there. But this is what people utilize. So again, that's why I think I agree with you. It's not just Israel.
This comment real quickly, I just want to address this. Why do you guys give Nick Fuentes any airtime? This is the CIA, the elitist kind of playbook to not pay attention, to not talk, to not converse, to not look, to not try to understand. There's two reasons why Nick Fuentes, either two reasons why he's very popular, or it could be the third, a little bit of both. Number one, there's a lot of people who share his feelings, share his sentiment, and that's why he does have a big following. And you have to pay attention to that, because if a lot of people feel the same way that Nick Fuentes does, and they're following for those reasons, you want to be able to address that. Or number two, the psyop is they're lifting him up and they're promoting him. Why are they promoting him? For some reason, could be a little bit of A and B. But if you think that this is going to be a channel where we're just going to ignore what's going on people on the right, and we're going to play this game, why do you give him any airtime? This is not the channel for you. We're going to talk about everything and anything that we think is going to be relevant to what's going on. This whole section is to point out what the populist right and a lot of their figures are saying, why they're saying it, and to try to figure out where this psyop is particularly going. This is Candace Owens now, and I said this before.
Before you continue, I just want to address that question too.
Go ahead.
This is probably the first time I've ever even seen that Pasta has brought up anything about Nick Fuentes. We don't even, personally, I don't like to bring up other podcasters' things unless there's like a purpose to it. And even then, I don't really like discussing what Nick Fuentes said on Tucker Carlson. That's not something I would ever even do. But I think Pasta is trying to point out the like, why are these people allowed to say these things? Why are these people getting the airtime? Why are they all suddenly, the people that were so pro-Zionist now anti-Zionist? And I think it's important to point out the reason is I agree with whoever said he's an op. I think majority of these people are captured. That's the whole point. It's like, I'm telling you they're captured. I'm telling you there's a reason why that I don't think it's an A and B. I think a lot of these people are absolutely 100% captured. They all come from mainstream media or some form of it, funded form of it. You still have Candace promoting Oracle. I think she just took it out, but she's promoting the other one. Are they saying some of the right things? Yes. Am I under any sort of spell thinking that it comes from a genuine, sadness of what's happening in Palestine? No, I just don't buy it. Call me cynical, but I'm not buying it. I think a lot of this is theatrics, just like with Anna Kasparian, right? Where she's going out there. Now she's like the number one defender of Palestinians. It's just not true. It's just getting clicks. And I've talked about this before. The anti-Zionist movement, it's become so powerful that there are people who are not necessarily anti-Zionist, but are weaponizing it to push their own agendas and their own movement. And these are the people that are allowed to talk about these things, whereas I'm not allowed to have a YouTube channel. Yes, I have one with Vanessa called Critical Perspectives that everybody should subscribe on, but I don't have a personal one because they've rejected me. And it's other people can have YouTube channels and say the same thing I'm saying and interview the same other people that I got shut down for interviewing, but I can't do it. And you have to ask yourselves why. And I think that is a valid question to do. And I think that having trying to analyze this is extremely important for understanding how intelligence works and how it operates. Sorry, Pasta, go on.
No, don't apologize. Those are great comments, and those are great points. And, once again, why are these people being mainstreamed? That's the question I'm bringing to the table here. Why are they being pushed forward? Why all of a sudden, where Tucker Carlson couldn't stand Nick Fuentes, kind of hinted that he was an op, the stuff he did on January 6th, he got away with. This is stuff that Tucker, kind of mentioned. Now, all of a sudden, he's sitting down and he's interviewing him, and now he's also trying to explain why. And one of the reasons I said, listen, and this is something I fight with Matt about all the time. I said, Matt, these people might be speaking up right now about Donald Trump, but if the election were here again today, they would still vote for Donald Trump. Here is Candace Owens explaining to Piers Morgan, once again, what she's saying, that she didn't vote for this, but she doesn't necessarily say yes or no, but she kind of alludes to the fact that maybe she would vote for him again today. Take a look.
Are you done with Donald Trump, or could you see a way that you would end up perhaps voting for him? Oh, you can't run again, obviously, but would you support him publicly again?
So I want to be clear. I don't regret voting for Donald Trump above Kamala. I think he was the better candidate, certainly a better candidate above Joe Biden. But what I will say is that he's been a chronic disappointment. And I feel embarrassed that I told people to go vote for him because this wasn't going to happen, and it is happening. But I just think that the picture of politics in America is going to look very differently because of his actions. So I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. But this is not the candidate that I voted for.
Are you done with Donald Trump, or could you see a way that you would?
By the way, fam, this is something we talked about too as well. Rescue the Republicans, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like they're trying to make it a third rail. They're trying to say, oh God, this is awful. But, and really she didn't say that she would vote for him again, but she did kind of point out the fact that, once again, this is the lesser of two evils. So anybody trying to sell you the lesser of two evils is either an op or a useful idiot. At the end of the day, that's all. You can't say it. If they're not saying what fam has been saying for quite some time, the whole fucking system is fucked. You're not going to vote your way out of it. You got to blow it up. You can't vote for the lesser of two evils because there's no such thing as a lesser of two evils. They're both serving the same agenda. They're serving the same donors. And she just did that again. And a lot of people who were there, who were trying to be critical of Donald Trump, would vote for them again today and tell you to vote for them. Vote for him again today, fam.
Yeah, well, what she said is very telling. Look, Candace is saying a lot of good things, but she also comes from, a background of like the same as Anna. They all have talent agents. They're putting on a show. They're putting on a show to get people riled up, and she's really great on putting on a show. I mean, I got to hand it to her. She goes in with passion. She makes it super dramatic, and she gets a lot of people thinking, oh my God, like, look, she's really going after the Zionists and all of that. But when I watch it, I look at somebody that's putting on a show, and that's fine. If you want to put on a show, by all means, do it, but I trust that as a person looking at like for where to get my information from? Do I trust that as somebody that I'm looking to for analysis? I don't, but a lot of people do, because they look at the internet as being credible and full of credible people. And they have a very myopic way of looking at things like, oh, she's saying bad things about Zionists, she must be good. A plus B equals C. Okay, great. But that's not how things work anymore. You can't just do that, because that's not how the intelligence works. And this is how they capture people. You have to ask yourself, who is benefiting from this? Why is this happening at this time? Why would they be allowed to say this? What exactly do they get out of this? What exactly are the details of what they're saying? Like, are they saying abandon the Republican Party to form your own, to go outside of politics? They're not telling you that, because that's exactly what they're not advocating. They're just saying that Donald Trump is, captured by the Israelis, that he is indefensible, and that he made a lot of mistakes. She wasn't able. She's upset. Well, she regrets telling people to vote for Donald Trump, because now things have changed. But and the more important but in that is that's the regret. But he was a better candidate than Kamala Harris. So instead of saying electoralism is dead, like I've been saying for the last I don't know how many years, she's telling you that it's the candidate that was only wrong, and that he was still better than the other one. So yeah, there could be another Republican. So what you're going to see is when the next election comes, they're all going to jump in to the Republicans the same way all the shitlib progressives, all the, Breaking Points, all the same people, Ryan Grimm's, all those people are jumping on to support Mamdani, because at the end of the day, it's only about what you say. When you don't really believe something and believe it with your whole heart, your actions don't follow. It's only about the words. So if you actually have these actions where you actually care about something, you act like that in your life, off camera. And that's, there's very few people that I see that with. And I just don't buy the theatrics of it, Pasta. I believe there's a lot of money to be made. in podcasting, when you feel the right towards somebody, whether it's Israel, whether it's immigrants, whether it's whoever it is, like, there's money to be made there. There's money to be made on the left, by presenting yourself as a savior. There's money to be made. And when there's money to be made, people will sell their grandmother to make it. And that's the unfortunate part of it.
The last clip I have is of Nick Fuentes what is he selling right now? You know what I'm saying? Once again, I often think, fam, is this about, money, or is this a psychological operation? Because where are they turning you? Where are they twisting you? Where are they sending you? That's something a guy by the name of Ian Davis, who's a great guy, is out of England, who always says you have to pay attention to where they are steering you. Well, look where Nick Fuentes is steering us in the situation. Anytime you make yourself the victim, fam, and you can convince yourself that you are the victim, and that's what Donald Trump did well, right? White people of America, middle America, you're the victim. They're opening up the borders. They're letting these people come in and replace you, right? They're the ones. You're the victim right now. You're under the gun. They want to wipe out your whole generation, your whole ethnicity. You shouldn't be proud that you're a white male or a white female. You are the devil. And that's what's under attack now. And that's what needs to be preserved. Here's Nick Fuentes going off, but he gets you to he pulls you in by going after Levin and Randy Fine, I think his name is, that fat bastard. Go ahead.
Pasta. So
Yeah.
how much are you going to, I don't want to get another copyright strike. So stop it, I guess, in between or whatever.
And that's why you're losing them. That's why I'm winning. Because I'm not setting plays. I'm not living on my knees to fight another day. I'm fighting. I'm speaking up. Whatever the consequences are, somebody has to. Somebody needs to tell Mark Levin he can take his fat ass and go to Israel. Somebody needs to stand up and say Randy Fine is disgusting, morally reprehensible. Damn him. Randy Fine says it's funny that children are starving in Gaza. He's smug about it. He thinks he's in any position to judge anybody, make moral judgments. You are repugnant. Randy Fine, you are repugnant. You are disgusting. You will burn in hell. And everyone agrees with me on this. Don't.
Okay. Are you going to
I'm just breaking it so you can interject and then.
Yeah. So I really quickly want to say, it feels theatrical to me, everything he's saying. And I still don't buy such a quick pivot. I don't buy any quick pivots, honestly, unless there's a detailed documented, I have new information, I'm digesting it. But the sudden quick pivots of it, sure, he's saying things that I agree with, send other people to Israel. We don't want anything to do with Israel. But why he's saying it matters to me. It may not matter to other people, but it matters to me. So that's all I want to say on that.
I just want to get to the meat and potatoes of where he goes with this, who's under attack, and just wondering, once again, it's part of the stuff that the establishment's always selling. Go ahead.
Don't make them choose between me and you. And the same goes for Mark Levin. And we don't want you in our country anymore. He says, I'm the only member of Congress that will wear a little hat. Well, fortunately for you, there's a whole country that does that. You should go there. We don't want you here. We're sick of you. We don't want to hear your big, fat mouth one more second. We don't want to be bullied by you. We don't want to be told about Israel. Mark Levin says, I don't want to hear any more about the genocide. We don't want to hear any more about Israel. We don't want to hear any more about your ancestors in the Holocaust. We don't want to hear about it. We don't care. We're in the middle of a Holocaust.
Here we go.
Do you know what's happening in Europe and the United States? The white population is being genocided. Where there used to be pillars and cathedrals, where there used to be order, where there used to be science and reason, now there is chaos and death and crime and superstition. And that is because All of these countries were white, were Christian, and now they're not. You want to talk about a Holocaust? We're in the middle of a Holocaust. We're in the middle of our Holocaust. What's going to happen in 100 years when our great-grandchildren wake up and they're 10% of the population in a minority, and it's like South Africa?
Pause. You see where he's going with this, fam? I mean,
Of course, yeah.
I wanted to get to that. That was important to me because right now, like I said, I was on that right-wing show last week, and they opened up the show talking about Christians getting killed in Nigeria. And I was like, what's going on right now? Christianity is under attack, fam. White Christianity is under attack. You got to be cautious about where they're steering you, because that is something that could be sold, because they are telling you in America, white America, middle America, that you are the victim, that your culture, your history, everything about it is under attack. And if you get aboard on that train when you're already starting to get on that train, where does that go? What countries do we start bombing tomorrow with that ideology, with that mentality? What person do we start to persecute next because of that mentality, because of that ideology? If you are the victim and you are under attack, and when you are made to believe that you are a victim, and he's talking to about like 80% of America here, right? 70% of them. Well, I don't want to say 60% of America. He's talking about the meat and potatoes of America. You are now the victim. Where does that lead us? What's going on? They have a great way of twisting these things, fam. And Nick Fuentes is doing a beautiful job of it, of making you believe, white Christians in America, that you are the victim and you are under attack, fam.
And he's not the only one. There's a lot of people going on that route, and it's not just Americans doing it. There's a lot of people internationally pushing that agenda, right? That the Muslims are coming into Europe and they're getting rid of white Christians. There's that whole thing that he just talked about in the US where, there's no more white people. And I mean, so when a liberal hears this and when some people hear this, they get emotional about it, right? On the left, they're like, wow, that's a white supremacist. Like he thinks, white people are pure, and like all these people are coming in and depurifying that. There are people that believe that. There are people that don't want race mixing. I've seen more and more of these comments online since Donald Trump. That is a fact. Since Donald Trump became president, it's just been out there more, right? Like, I think people did have these sentiments before, but it's been out there. Do I think that's the primary population of the United States? No. I think the majority of people of the United States aren't white supremacists. I think the majority of people in the United States are just like people that are normies and don't pay attention to the political stuff that's happening. At least people who are younger, millennials or younger, they're not like that. I do think that there are attempts to capture people who are not like that into these sectors, whether it's the liberal sector or the far right, like the Nick Fuentes of this people, right? And so he's going to get a lot of these people that are discovering America's ties to Zionism, who are discovering, imperialism done by the United States. This was Charlie Kirk too, by the way. And they would say, oh yeah, we shouldn't. They'll say something like, we shouldn't go into Iran, and then the next day they'll be like, but these radical Muslims need to be targeted, blah blah blah. Like, so they speak out of both sides of their mouth. So this is how exactly somebody like Nick Fuentes will get somebody that's like an anti-Zionist and convince him that, yeah, the Zionists are terrible, but you know who else is terrible? The immigrants coming in that are taking your jobs, the Muslims, and you need to worry about all of these other people because they're going to come in and they're going to stop and stop you, and you're going to have grandchildren that are like half brown, and your Christian values are all going away because of the liberal radical left and all their bullshit. And so it goes back to that whole othering, like it's this guy or this guy. And who aren't you focused on ultimately when this happens? Literally not focused on the people manipulating things. So why does Nick Fuentes get a platform to say this stuff? Why does Nick Fuentes, who is, looked on as somebody that's censored Why is he being highlighted at this time, at this very moment, by people who have a lot of influence? Why do people entertain him in this way when the things he's saying aren't intelligent? The things he's saying are low frequency, very like sub evolutionary things. Like, we shouldn't even be talking about like race. We shouldn't be talking about these feelings of like feeling less than, when that's not the reality in the world. Look where all the bombs are. Look where all the sanctions are, the majority of the sanctions. Look where they are. Look at the rest of the world and tell me who's being oppressed here. But you can't do that, or you're some sort of woke idiot. There's no nuance between the liberal wokeism and the other wokeism on the right, because it is woke, because they're also saying they're victims. It's their version of the wokeism. And so all you get amplified, guys, are the Nick Fuenteses, or the what's this guy's name? The Mehdi Hassan types. So you get those voices amplified. You don't get the voices that are bringing you nuance, that are trying to tell you both of these people are serving a purpose for a specific agenda, that at the end of the day, those agendas are much closer together than they would like to admit. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a good way to highlight that.
I mean, you know, not to kind of reiterate there once again, because I know we said we shouldn't be talking about race, whatnot, and stuff. But the majority of bombs are dropped, right, in this world, are dropped by a white Christian nation. I mean, the majority of bombs who are oppressing people and killing people in the world are from a predominantly white Christian nation, Nick Fuentes. This is why I said it's very important to pay attention to this, because a lot of people share his sentiment. And a lot of people were able, when you can convince somebody that they are the victim, you can get them to go along with anything you want. Yep. And we saw this really much with the Israeli community, the Zionist community over here. People told me all the time over here in this community, you know, it's a shame what's going on in Israel. It's the only place where Jews can live in freedom and peace and stuff like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like justifying an ethno-religious state. You know what I'm saying? Because why? You're the victim. Everybody hates Jews is what you're telling me. And that's why it's okay for your country to do what they're doing. And Nick Fuentes is doing the same thing here. The same thing that he supposedly hates, right? He's doing the same thing, just for a different group that he's trying to convince you are marginalized. White Christians aren't marginalized people. Come on. It's white Christians that are going around and trying to dominate the globe. Well, they're using Christianity. I don't believe they're real Christians. They're just, once again, weaponizing Christianity to get you to go along. And we got to pay attention to this. That's why I brought this to the table today, because we have to pay attention to this as it moves along. Nick Fuentes is not woke. Nick Fuentes is an old school white supremacist. It's just we are probably unfamiliar with that kind of racism.
I mean, is he? I don't know if he's racist or not. I mean, what he's saying is racist, you know. But you know why I say that? Because I think a lot of this isn't real. I think a lot of what these people portray is just acting. I think they're personalities. You know how I know that's? Because they have agents, and they go around and they say these things, and they change their mind like this. So I honestly don't know what they actually are, because I think it's all a performance. So, you know, like you could say the same thing about Candace. She said some horrible things, but how, you know, you can't call her racist, or can you? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, I feel like a lot of this is performative. Yeah, racist people exist. They definitely exist in Florida. I mean, man, you had the KKK there still to this day. You know, nobody's denying that it's there. But is it there at the level they're trying to convince you that it is in the average American population? No, they're trying to make it a thing. They're trying to get people to be racist. They're trying to get people to blame somebody else. If it doesn't work against this person, let's try this next group of people. They're trying to do that. And you can inherently say that the United States is a racist country based on how it was created. But based on the experience, and I've lived in middle America. I mean, I've lived in the Midwest. I've lived in the South. I've lived in also the North. I've lived all over the United States. And like, I'm telling you, the majority of people that I've encountered, everyday people, might be clueless, might be propagandized, but the majority of people are not racist. There are racist people. I've seen it. I've seen how different people get treated depending on what they look like. And that racism is everywhere in the world. It's not just in the United States. It's that supremacist ideology is everywhere in the world. It exists even in Latin American countries where Latin Americans are racist against other Latin Americans. And that is a fact. So it's not just about the United States. It's a mindset that we still haven't passed enough time to get rid of. But is it the number one thing, like Nick Fuentes is making it out to be, that, you know, white people are being eradicated? No. Is it the number one thing that is driving inequality in the United States anymore? No. It's economics. And they're using race to fuel that economic divide, to convince people to attack each other. And it's worked for the longest time, and it continues to work, because as long as you have figures like Nick Fuentes to piss people off, to really make your blood boil and say, wow, he's so racist and terrible and blah, 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 you're not going to be able to destroy that, because it's going to become a screaming match between that. You like it becomes impossible to tackle that. What we have to do is discredit what he's saying, not just based on my belief that it's wrong because it's racist, but the belief that it's just completely factual and fabricated. And that's how you can convince even the most ardent supporters, or people who are starting to teeter on that it's wrong, because you can't change sometimes people's moral stance, but you can at least throw all the facts out there and say what he's saying is absolute lunacy, because it's just not factual. Mm. And you can do both, right? If your show is about saying, you know, I condemn what he's saying because he's a racist, blah, 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 that's fine. But also bring the facts. Also bring that what he's talking about is not backed by statistics. It's not backed by data. Everything he's saying is just, you can look outside and see that that's just not real. So I advocate doing both.
Divide and conquer, a sound policy, but unite and lead, a better one. Voltaire. Guys, all the ways to help the show are down below. That was the section about where we're headed. Where is the PSYOP going? If there is a PSYOP, is it a PSYOP? It seems awfully coincidental that all these people are now coming together and getting all the clicks and whatnot. And you know, the big issue I think right now is the fact that there's zero transparency when it comes to social media. There are people behind the scenes choosing who gets to get, you know, the clicks and who gets listened to and who gets censored, who gets shut down. And I can tell you that we're still experiencing this stuff.
Yeah.
We were being very cautious there because YouTube gave us a spanking, which was, once again, should be illegal. If there is a president giving an interview, as news reporters, we should be able to give analysis on the news he's putting out there without any, you know, hurdles whatsoever. But, you know, once again, they spanked us, YouTube, for playing the 60-minute video. So now we have to be cautious about what's going on. They're completely censoring us as much as they can, guys. It's still going on. Why are they doing that? And then Fam says it very clearly. Why does Nick Fuentes get the platform he gets to have and we do not? You know, and we know this because we have talked about the same thing as someone else. We get censored, we get demonetized, we get it taken down, and that other person gets to talk about it. There's a reason why. They want to make sure their gatekeepers are their gatekeepers. And those who are going to give you a nuanced, open point of view about it are left in the dark.
I can agree with Carmen there. Right. Americans are not predominantly racist. I saw a lot more racism when I lived in Peru as a teenager. The white Peruvians want to keep it that way.
Absolutely.
True.
I can't say that. Only Fam can comment on that, not me.
I mean, there's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? People have different experiences. Obviously, a person with a different background is going to have a completely different experience. You can ask my brother. He's definitely had a different experience than I have. And so you're going to see that differently for sure. But I agree with that comment. So really, guys, because we've gone on for so long, I know Jayme has something else, but I do want to start talking about this because we need to pay attention back to foreign policy, which is where I really want to get to, because Israel, as you all have noticed, has ramped up strikes against Lebanon. Of course, they violated the ceasefire through and through, but Lebanon, they always, have been with this back and forth because they failed miserably against Hezbollah. So they started ramping up strikes against Lebanon, and Hezbollah responded by saying that they vow to defend themselves, and there is some sort of unity because, just so everybody knows, the Lebanese government is not Hezbollah. There is Hezbollah within the Lebanese government, but it's not just Hezbollah driving the forces here, but Hezbollah are the ones that defend Lebanon. They're the ones that really go after the Israelis. The Lebanese army, they don't have what it takes, and that's just reality of on the ground in Lebanon. So this Al Jazeera article, and the reason I brought up Al Jazeera is because they talk about these two things, not for anything analytical, but Hezbollah said, we reaffirm our legitimate right to defend ourselves against an enemy that imposes war on our country. And so at least one person was killed and 9 others were injured. And this was as of yesterday in a series of Israeli strikes across southern Lebanon. And of course, this is, they're saying that this is being condemned not just by Hezbollah, but by the Lebanese government. So through their actions, what Israel is doing, it's uniting more people with Hezbollah, because then people feel like, oh, Hezbollah are the only ones that are going to do anything. So the Israeli military said that it targeted alleged Hezbollah military installations on Thursday. They've been targeting South Lebanon for a while, accusing the group of refusing to disarm in accordance with an agreement reached last year. There was no agreement. They just dictated that Hezbollah needed to disarm, and Hezbollah was never going to disarm. So Israel carried out nearly daily strikes despite the truce. Again, another truce that they violated. And Hezbollah said that it committed to the ceasefire but will not disarm so long as Israel continues to routinely attack Lebanese territory. So they said what Israel committed today in southern Lebanon constitutes a full-fledged crime under international humanitarian law, which criminalizes the targeting, terrorizing, and forced displacement of civilians. This was said by the Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, in a statement. Nearly a year has passed since the ceasefire took effect, and during that period, Israel has spared no effort in showing its rejection of any negotiated settlement between the two countries. And the Tyre district in Lebanon is in the south. It is what they attacked. So I just want to bring that up, and I also want to say that there was an Al Jazeera correspondent reporting from Beirut that said these strikes have been happening nearly for a year now since that ceasefire came into force, but this is seen as an escalation because Hezbollah had just passed an open letter to the leadership and to the Lebanese people, and the open letter was very impactful, and it basically said that, they're going to defend themselves. And the United States then made a statement saying that they're going to pressure Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah, but they've never gone after Israel's ceasefire violations. And so the UN FIL said any military action, especially on such a destructive scale, threatens the safety of civilians and undermines the progress being made towards a political and diplomatic solution. So the last thing I want to say on this is Hezbollah, of course, rejected any political negotiations with Israel. They said that this doesn't serve national interests, which obviously they're right. And this is pressure because the U.S. has been using the Gulf, the Saudis, Egypt, and basically the surrounding areas to push Lebanon into some sort of truce with Israel, basically disarming Hezbollah, giving up their resistance, which Hezbollah will not allow. And they said, we reaffirm our legitimate right to defend ourselves against an enemy that imposes war on our country and does not cease its attacks. So that's it. That's what they're going to do. Hezbollah says we're not going to stop. We're going to fight back. Good. So what I want to highlight about this is just as Trump negotiated this ceasefire deal, and as there was, a ceasefire, even though we know that didn't really happen, Israel pivoted directly to Lebanon. People thought they were going to pivot to Iran. People thought they were just going to go all out. They're pivoting to Lebanon because Hezbollah is a strong force that has routinely stopped them time and time again. And they're going to try to take out Hezbollah next. And that's always been the, I would say, the the next phase of where we're going, where they're going through. So at the same time that happened, the United States then has threatened Iraq.
Get the next article up, Jayme.
The United States has threatened Iraq over the cabinet posts for Iran-backed armed groups. So basically, the United States warned Baghdad that they are not going to recognize Iraq's next government if any ministries are handed to armed factions that they say are linked to the Islamic Republic of Iran. So that's what they're saying. They're basically trying to say, if you don't select the people we approve of who are pro-US, we're not going to support or back your elections, meaning you're in danger of regime change. And there have the reason they're going after Iraq, and I was in Iraq last year, and Iraq still has the US military there in it's called the Green Zone. And the Iraqi military has a relationship with the US, but that's essentially dwindled down. And there are relations with Iran, right? And so the US is losing its footing, and they don't want to lose their footing. Now, is there a possibility that the pro-US opposition can gain a hold? There absolutely is. That's just the nature of things in Iraq. But there's the Iraqi government, and this is what people need to know about the Middle East. There's the Iraqi government, and then there's a resistance factions. And when you go to Iraq, you're going to see that there's a difference. It's just like with Hezbollah and the Lebanese government. The resistance factions there are strong, and they've been cooperating, trying to advocate for Gaza and the Palestinian cause. They have ties to Tehran. They're called resistance for a reason. Do they control the Iraqi government? No. So this is something that we can get deeper on the next time, because this is just getting started.
Yeah.
But this is something that we may need to revisit 9/11, right? To talk about everything that's happened since, because everything that's happened since is going to affect what's going on now and going into Iraq's next elections. So, Pasta, we have elections to watch as well.
Yeah, just talking about watching some stuff in the chat. OTR Trucker. I don't know where you're getting this from. You're a little bit off. I don't even kind of talk about it. Listen, it's 3:00. We have to get out of here because Jayme has another show to go to, and we have been here for close to 2 hours. So yes, I'm glad that you brought that to the table, and I'm glad you pointed out the difference between the Iraqi army and the resistance. Same thing going on in Lebanon, Hezbollah, right? I think a lot of people think that Hezbollah runs the Lebanese government. They don't understand how the Lebanese government runs. And I think we have to shine a little bit of light on that. So we'll be back with these stories on Monday. I'm going to also look into see what's going on in Mexico, fam. I think you should look into that. And also Nigeria, we should look into that. So there's a lot of things to talk about. And we have to keep posted about what's going on in Venezuela. We have a tight communication with Camila Escalante from Casachuan News, who's staying on top of that. And a lot of other friends. Our good friend Gloria Guillo has been writing some great stuff about the Mamdani, Handsome Newsom, and the, kind of comparing it to a prize fight that's been fixed with Jake LaMotta. This is all for show over here. And that's what they're attempting to do. So when you see all those idiots together yelling in a room with Mamdani, you got to be aware. And thank you very much to the comment to the guy who said that, we just look beyond the surface. We've been doing that for quite some time. Hopefully it is thought-provoking, but that's it for today. Thank you so much. Hey, Friendly Brilliant came around. Thank you so much, Ruth. We love you. Fred Edwards, you came in late. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to the fam out there. We love you guys.
To all our supporters. Yeah. Shout out to Shanda Masta, who
always
is battling cancer.
Masta.
We love her very much.
We love you, honey. Oz, Amber, we love you guys too. Roar Media, the whole Roar Media family. We've always been close to them. They are fam, and you are our fam. So all the ways to help the show are down below. That's it for today. For the TruthWire, for Fiorella Isabel, Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos, I am Craig Pasta Jardula. We'll see you back on Monday with some more thought-provoking stories. Until then, remember, truth out.
Bye, everybody.